in the Spanish Ministry of Agriculture.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, and I'm going to be the moderator for today. As you just heard, this meeting is going to be recorded. So if you want to keep yourself private, please switch your camera off and mute your microphone. In fact, if you could mute your microphone, it would be great so we can avoid a background noise that may distract the speakers. This workshop is held after the success of the Northern Regional Workshop and is going to be focused in southern countries instead, with the participation of countries as France, Portugal, Greece, Cyprus, Italy, Malta, and Spain that will present their AKIS reports. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can submit them via chat, and I will collect them and bring them to the collect them and summarize them in a question and answer document that we're going to publish afterwards in the website of the project, where all the presentation and output will be also shared there. So the first intervention of the day is by Carmen Avellaner. She's from the I'll try to do this my best, sorry. Assemblée Permanente des Chambres d'Agriculture, and she's going to present the agenda and also the welcome and introduction to I2 Connect. So Carmen, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Carmen?
She's muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
thank you.
Sorry, I don't know what happened with Zoom this morning. Anyway, so hello everybody. Thank you to be here. It's not easy with all meetings we have all. So you have already presented, you have already introduced, make a welcome or presented the agenda, Iratxe?
No, I didn't. I just give headers on the mechanics and give everyone a warm welcome since we have a diverse audience. But the agenda and the introduction of I2 Connect is all yours. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you very much. So yes, I think Liga, someone was going to show the presentation, maybe Miguel. So we don't take any risk. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to give you some flavor of I2 Connect. Most of you know, so I'm not going to be very insisting on the things that you know. So I'm the European project manager of I2 Connect. With Sylvain, we are the coordinators of the project. So yeah, the first slide, I just present the general objective and the specific objectives. So this is okay. So there it is. So basically, as you probably know, this project tries to foster the role of advisors in interactive innovation, and the idea is to support at the end the transition to a productive and sustainable and resilient agriculture and forestry. Three main specific objectives, which are linked to the skills and the competencies of individual advisors, the strength of the role of advisor in the wider AKIS, that's why we are having this meeting today, and also create a European network of innovation advisors in agriculture and forestry, creating different tools, different database, and trying to identify those innovation advisors in Europe. Partners of I2 Connect is large. You know, we are 42, 21 countries. We include also 4 European advisory networks, and the duration is basically 5 years. We are now in the midterm of the project. So next slide, thank you. So the key task, the first, that is the subject we are going to discuss today, is to better understand the AKIS. Update the AKIS country reports that they have already been developed, and expand to the new ones. So basically, at the end of the project, we'll have 30 country reports. The new ones with I2Connect are Croatia, Switzerland, Montenegro, and Serbia. So this is the first. Another important task, which is identify and review good practices in innovation support. This is an ongoing task, and all partners need to send good practices that they are, and we are sure that they are all around. Then we are developing and carrying training materials and tools and courses at different levels. We are developing an European database of innovation advisors and organizations. This is the advisory service database. And in different ways, we are creating and boosting a network of innovation advisors. As you can imagine, the target groups are trainers, practicing agriculture and forestry advisors, future advisors, managers, and all AKIS actors and stakeholders. So that's this slide. So the next slide. Yeah. So I wanted to focus on the meeting today. One of the tasks, 5.9, is to promote and embed I2Connect in the wider AKIS. That's why in the proposal, in the project, we said that we are going to organize during these 5 years 4 regional stakeholders workshops with the support of CEASM, with the European network. And so we have already had the first regional workshop that was on 23rd March and focused on 4 northern countries. I guess that most of you attended or just followed the recordings. It was very interesting. And now, so today we are in the second regional workshop, focusing 7 southern countries: France, Portugal, Greece, and Cyprus, Spain, Italy, and Malta. We'll have a third and fourth regional stakeholders workshops that they are planned at the end of the project around May and July. So basically, that's the framework for today. We are very happy that at the same time that all the participants, the speakers make a presentation, you ask using the chat every question that you have, and also from the question you can have from I2Connect, or just send it an email. And well, we are very happy to have all of you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen. That was a nice warm-up, so we can continue with the journey. And the next speaker are going to be Andrea Knierim Sangeun Bae from the University of Hohenheim, and they are going to talk about the role of AKIS and the preliminary results of the AKIS cross-country analysis. So, whenever you want.
Okay, thank you very much.
Morning.
And good morning to all of you and to the speakers. Sangeun and me, we are going to give this presentation together. My name is Andrea Knierim. I'm from the University of Hohenheim, and together with Sangeun and 2 other colleagues, we work in the I2Connect project with all the other partners you just saw through the introduction by Carmen. And we will do it jointly. You see also Sangeun. I think she has also highlighted her camera. I will start, and then she will come to the content of our studies.
Yes, just to check, do I have the right screen on?
Yes.
Very good.
You do.
Very good. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So as it was said, we give this presentation with the objective to give you the broader frame for then the next step when we look at the countries. And so I will start to talk a little bit about the conceptual background of the AKIS approach and the key functions or the key features of such a concept. And then Sangeun will give you more information about what's currently going on, what we found out with the AKIS analysis that we did across European countries. And this will be the basis then for the look at the country level that comes afterwards. So also, I guess you all know now the word AKIS, and you all have heard about this agriculture knowledge and innovation system approach. You may not be thoroughly familiar with it, or you could just get a reminder. I would like to start with the statement that this AKIS concept, actually, for most of us, it's quite new. It has been developed in the agricultural extension on the agricultural extension chairs around the people who study this and present this at the universities. And it's only in the last, let's say, 15 years that it became more widely shared. So this agriculture knowledge and innovation system is a concept, is an idea about what happens when we exchange knowledge and when we promote and disseminate, but first, of course, develop innovations to support voluntary change in agriculture. So it's a mental model. Why do we use this? Because there is it is complex, this endeavor to bring about change through knowledge and through new ideas. And it involves many people, but not only people, also ways to interact. It involves institutions, regulations, policies. It involves infrastructures, organizations. And so we use a system approach to have a clearer picture of what happens. And you see one of the first models on the upper part, it shows that an agricultural knowledge system is composed of several subsystems, such as research, extension, education, and other support systems. You may think of media, of any kind of financial organizations, and so on, who all support farmers to bring about change. More recently, this concept has also been translated as a network of organizations, so more focusing on actors, on people and their embedding organizations like enterprises, like bureaucracies, like public administrations, and so on. And this is also shown here on the right-hand side as the many actors that are around farmers to work together to bring about change. So you see that the AKIS concept is quite comprehensive, but it gives you several perspectives to make sense out of the bigger whole when people come together to bring about change at various levels in the agricultural system. So be it at a local level, or be it at a regional level, or even at a national level. Please, could you click on all the yes. So with this comprehensive understanding of what an AKIS is, we understand also that bringing about a well-functioning AKIS means that you can act upon many levels and upon many entry points. One is that there should be supporting policies, that resources are dedicated to the creation and the dissemination of knowledge and the sharing of ideas. There is a need that influential actors, as example given farmers organizations, they see this AKIS perspective, they take their role, they bring about access to knowledge, for example. There is also a need of very good coordination mechanisms, that people that are engaged in networks, that they can freely communicate, that they have, for example, respective platforms and so on. So this is also what brings about formalized, formal and informal linkages among these actors. And we can also see that in advisory service systems, there are dedicated services that help farmers to become more effective in innovation processes. With this, I hand over to No, I don't hand over. I have still one slide. And this is about the current policy context in which we are. You may remember that since the early 2000s, the EU Common Agricultural Policy has installed at least the need that there is some advisory services for farmers. This was part of the cross-compliance scheme. And with this turn towards agricultural advisory services, we see an increase in attention of what happens when farmers get support. And this was further supported by the development of the APCA, the European Innovation Partnership, with instruments that now targetedly create incentives and structures that farmers participate in co-constructed innovation processes. This co-construction happens through network structures at a local and a regional level. These networks are usually composed of several different actor types, and this is also called a multi-actor approach. In parallel to this, let's say, regional development-based instrument of the operational groups, we have also multi-actor approaches in many EU projects that were funded since the 2014 through the Horizon 2020 program and still continue to be implemented through the Horizon Europe program. So we see a coordinated approach through several EU-level instruments to bring about this multi-actor cooperation and interactive innovation processes. This has been even more institutionalized by the most recent EU CAP reform, where we see that national agricultural policies should develop a strategic approach that includes an AKIS conception and a support to this knowledge and innovation system for agriculture. Now it's the moment to hand over to Sangeun.
Yes. Yeah, so to continue, given this background understanding of the AKIS and given this context, as Carmen already mentioned, one of our tasks in I2Connect was to basically update the AKIS inventory that we had from the Pro-AKIS project, but as well also include here 4 new countries. So these were the countries that Carmen already mentioned. And to achieve this, what we wanted to do within the project was more or less to have a unified and a systematic approach. So what we did was that for each of the country reports, we wanted to provide a AKIS characterization at the national level. So basically, we wanted to identify the AKIS actors, and we wanted to see what are the linkages that are existing within these AKIS actors. Secondly, what we wanted to do was to also present this actors, this diversity, and also their relationship in a schematic diagram, which you would later see in the other presentations. Thirdly, we also wanted to describe the larger environment, the AKIS environment. So here we have policy, funding, coordination mechanisms at the national level. And lastly, what we wanted to do was to delve a little bit more into the advisory service subsystem and see and characterize the different service providers and the different characteristics. So that was basically the beginning of our task. And as a concrete output, therefore, we now have 27 AKIS country reports that have either been updated or written for the first time. And these were based on over 100 AKIS expert interviews. And as you saw, we also had a survey from the advisory service providers in the partner countries. So there we also had over 500 respondents from the various AKIS countries, and also diverse published and grey literature. So all these country reports are available on our I2Connect website. So if you have not had the chance yet to see them, we invite you to browse through these very interesting reports. Yeah, so with that, I would now like to give you a little bit of an insight from a cross-cutting analysis of the 27 AKIS reports that we did. And we begin first at a more broader level of the organization and governance at the national level. And here what we found out was that in most of the countries, we see that the AKIS is more or less governed at the national level, which we refer to as the centralized AKIS. In a few of the countries, however, we see the opposite of this, that is the decentralized AKIS, where part of the AKIS governance is within the jurisdiction of the regional authorities. And we see this in typical countries like Spain, Germany, Italy, and the likes. In a few of the countries, for example, in Switzerland and Austria, we found that there was more a tendency for both centralization and decentralization. So in Austria, for example, you would see that with regards to agriculture and forestry, the legislation is within the national government, but the federal states still have a lot of say with regards to education and advisory services. So we see this level of partial decentralization in Austria, for example. Now, the second feature that we looked at was the diversity of the AKIS actors. And here we followed a 5-actor category, which you would see here on the right. So we have the public authorities, we have research and education, we have farmer-based organization, the third sector NGO, and the private companies or entrepreneurs. And here in this table, what we tried to do was more or less provide an overview of the diversity of the
It seems that Sangeun has lost the connection. I guess she will fast come back. I can still have a look and see whether and how I can complement. So what is interesting about this graph is that, yeah, as she just said, there is this diversity of actors. So you see that in almost all countries, there is a strong can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, then I will just take the lead to continue and then see when Sangeun is back. So you see that, for example, in terms of diversity, we have some mostly Western countries where you have all the different types of organizations represented. That means there is more than only 1 or 2 actors per category. And so we talk of a pluralism of, or an explicit pluralism of in the AKIS. Oh, okay. So, but also you can see when we go further down that there are some countries who have maybe only 3 actor categories, and the other 2 are well or not at all represented. And there are a few countries where, for example, the public actor doesn't play a role or a very small role, and where we have no or very little farmer-based organizations and so on. So this gives you some indication about the diversity of the landscape, the engagement of the various actors in terms of at least representation and so on. Sangeun, are you back?
Please, I got kicked out.
Yes.
And I don't know where I got, yeah, but anyhow, we're on this.
Yes, I took the sequence. If you like, I can click and you talk.
Yeah, I would just control it from my side if you don't mind, because of
I don't.
Yeah, so I would just quickly, sorry for this.
Yeah, we beg your pardon.
I wonder how long I was disconnected. It took me a while to realize that I was not connected anymore.
It was not so long.
Ah, okay, that's good then.
Yeah.
And also, so Andrea took, you know, the role of making the connection. So
Yeah.
No problem.
So I would now share. Yeah. So am I back on with the normal screen?
Yes, and you can continue with the
Okay.
advisory services. Next slide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So now in terms of the advisory organizations reaching farmers, we found here that there was a huge diversity. So we see a huge mix across the countries that are shown here. And just to highlight a few of this, we see that, for example, in quite a number of countries, the public advisory organization is still the predominant advisory service providers or structures reaching the farmers. So in Croatia and Serbia, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture with its regional authorities are still considered as sole providers of advisory services. Farmer-based organizations play a very important role in a lot of the countries, serving as the predominant structures reaching farmers. In Austria, for example, the reports highlight that the chambers, for example, are the backbone of the Austrian AKIS. And in a lot of the other countries, you see there's a mix of these different types, 2 or more types of advisory service providers. I forgot to mention here that in Netherlands and the Greece, for example, the predominant ones here are the private advisory organizations. We also read in a lot of the reports that there are also observed changing roles between the private advisory organizations and the government. So we see that in quite a number of the countries, the public advisory organizations are more or less withdrawing themselves from providing advice to rather relegating these to the others, and they play mainly a coordination and regulatory role. So those are the predominant overview of the predominant advisory structures reaching the farmers. Now, the next feature that we looked at was whether there are AKIS supporting policies. So here, in terms of policies or dedicated resources to subsectors of the AKIS. And here, not surprisingly, we saw that the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development was described as the most prominent policy support of the AKIS at national or regional level. In addition to this, in some other countries, there were also additional national policies and funding. But we found that in general, though, where they existed, they were mainly oriented towards particular subsectors, so towards research or innovations, and less of more cross-thematic, cross between the systems. Yeah. Next, in terms of the AKIS coordination mechanisms, we could largely see 2 broad categories. So on the one hand, we have these coordination mechanisms that have been established in response to the EU policy. So here we have a lot of the reports mentioning national rural networks. On the other hand, we also see that in addition to this, we have several national programs that takes various forms. So for example, you would have working groups, councils, thematic platforms, all with the objective of bringing together advisors, researchers, decision makers, or different stakeholders in an attempt to exchange knowledge and experience. Now, the level or the extent to which these coordination mechanisms really play a role, that really depends on the countries. But we see that at least in a lot of the countries, these coordination mechanisms still serve as very important tools for facilitating knowledge exchange across heterogeneous actors. Now, as a final feature of the AKIS, we looked at the degree of linkages between the AKIS actors. This, of course, was really a huge challenge because, as you can see here on the right part of the presentation, there was a huge diversity in the way partners described their AKIS or represented their AKIS in a diagram. But at least to highlight a few very observable characteristics, we see that in general, there are stronger linkages between farmer organizations and vocational education and advisory service providers. We see that also in a few countries such as Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, there are good linkages among all the actors. In general, we see that comparatively, the degree of vertical linkages are stronger compared to horizontal linkages. And lastly, that this was a point that was highlighted in a lot of the reports, that the linkage between science and practice are generally weak than compared to other actors. With that, I would now like to highlight just a few insights from the survey that we conducted on advisory service providers in our partner countries. And to give you just a short background, basically what we did was we analyzed a total of 511 responses, with roughly 44% from freelance advisors and 56% being represented by advisory organizations. And here, as you can see in the second chart, here by advisory organizations, we mean it in the broader sense of the word. So we not only included those advisory organizations whose sole mandate is to provide advisory service, but also those organizations that have as part of their mandate a component of advisory service provision. Yeah, and you see here on the right that there was a huge diversity also in the organizational affiliations of these advisory organizations. Now, as a first result, we looked at the scale of operations. So here we mean sub-regional, regional, national, and international. And what we found out here was that there was quite a diversity among the advisory service provider categories, which is not surprising because it also shows the different foci and the different interest of these organizations. So for example, we see that in the government-based advisory organizations and the FBOs, for example, their outreach was more or less limited to the regional and sub-regional levels. We also see, for example, that private organizations, NGOs, and especially research-based organizations, on the other hand, have an outreach that goes a little bit beyond. So we see quite a number of them involved at national and international levels here, for example. Now, when we look specifically at the freelance advisors, we see that at least from those that responded to our survey, we have them being predominantly male, working full-time with an average of 18.5 years, so quite a number of years of professional experience. We also see that they are very highly educated. So you see that quite a number of them have engineering and master's degree. In terms of the topics that were most demanded by clients, we see here a high popularity for the 5 main topics. So here the entrepreneurship and farm management, rural development, support and diversification, support with grant application and compliance, agri-environmental stewardship measures, and production technologies. And lastly, in terms of the proportion of time that was dedicated to advisory activities, here we also see quite a number of differences among the various categories. So, for example, you would see that for private organizations and farmer-based organizations, they spend quite a greater proportion of their time on targeted consultation services, which is not surprising. For universities and also for government-based advisory organizations, we see that in addition to this, they also dedicate quite a number of their time on teaching and training activities, as well as information dissemination. in terms of NGOs, we see that, well, not NGOs, but if you look in general, we see that for the advisory activity on innovation support services, which is represented here in the light blue, all of the advisory service provider categories are involved in some extent, but we see that how much varies depends on the type. So we see, for example, that non-governmental organizations spend more time on innovation support services compared to the rest. And finally, and not surprisingly, we see that advisors from private or commercial advisory organizations spend the least time on further development or self-development of one's knowledge and skills. So I would now here give a short summary of a deeper one. Really, it's not, it's difficult at this moment and challenging because it would require more systematic comparison between the countries, even though we had this unified and structured approach. But just to give a few conclusions based on what we have currently, we see that there's a good resonance of the AKIS concept among the interviewees in the partner countries. We also see from the results that there is a greater institutional diversity of the AKIS actors. Thirdly, we see that although still not so prominent, there is still, we see in a lot of the countries that there's a growing presence of the coordination mechanisms aimed at facilitating collaboration between the AKIS actors. And we also, from the survey results, see that there are quite a number of differences between the advisory service provider categories in a lot of the organizational characteristics. So for example, their scale of operation, the time allocated for certain advisory service tasks, for example. And lastly, in relation to this point, we also see that all of them are involved in innovation support services, but the degree of involvement also depends on the type of or category of advisory service providers. Yep, and with that, then sorry again for the glitch, and I would end my presentation here and welcome your questions.
Thank you, Sangeun and Andrea. It was a really nice presentation to give us some insight into the AKIS, complementary to the to Connect presentation that Carmen gave us, and also a nice comprehensive image of how the situation is in these 27 countries. Since we have a little bit of a busy schedule, we are going to jump onto the next presentation. If you don't mind, I will take your questions if you have any in the chat, and I circulate later on to all of you the questions so we can summarize them. Do you agree? Okay, so our next speaker is Inge Van Oost from the European Commission, DG-AGRI, that will give us an insight on how to better integrate advisors in the AKIS thanks to the new Common Agriculture Policy. Inge, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah, okay, just sharing my screen now. Okay, do you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's big enough, I will work like this. I suppose it's clear enough for you. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I was very happy also to join in and to listen, and I will try to stay a little bit longer also before some bilateral meetings on the CAP strategic plans and on the future AKISs that they are going to prepare and probably, hopefully, manage and coordinate in the future. Still a little bit of time for you to explain the more political background. Andrea already touched upon it, but I still want to show you what is officially then the terminology that we use, the definition for AKIS. It's about not separate systems, but the organization and interaction of persons, institutions who use and produce knowledge and innovation for agriculture and interrelated fields. So this and interrelated fields is really very important, not to see the A from AKIS very narrow, but it's really broad, and all players will be then not only farmers, foresters, advisors, and researchers, but also the organizations concerned, NGOs, certain networks or groups, platforms, people from education, be it vocational training or the normal education, the retailers, media play a most big role these days. I see this very good, well in the promotion of certain multi-actor projects or operational groups that we have. Also services, all kinds of services, various ministries, of course, because they decide where the money goes and where the efforts are put, but they all need and produce knowledge. And the reason why we started with adding AKIS on top of the EIP concept that we had since 2012 and was working quite well is really to have a national, regional innovation ecosystem that enhances, and this is the main word that you have to remember, knowledge flows. So we want to cut the silos of these different systems and try to get the knowledge flowing from one to the other, from one person to the other, from one organization to the other, from one institution to the other, and that's the key thing. There's a link here where an 8-pager can be found to explain the rationale, why we started this AKIS, because it's not new. It comes from 2008, where the researchers themselves, in a declaration in the Standing Committee of Agricultural Research, said that their classical linear model of research, researcher researches, gives the outcomes to the advisor gives the outcome to the farmer, that it doesn't function anymore, and less along the time, I would say, as the problems and challenges become more and more complex. And that was then also the start of a group that put dedicated efforts in developing views and insights around this AKIS, and it's this group that pushed then this AKIS policy also into the CAP starting in 2023 as a concept that member states obligatory have to make a strategic approach about. They have to choose AKIS coordination bodies. We didn't have AKIS coordination bodies so far, so now we will have official bodies that take the lead and that will need to be in very close contact with the many organizations that play a role in AKIS. Not to forget what is here on top, because I already heard proposals to rename AKIS into BKIS, Bioeconomy, Knowledge and Innovation Systems, or EKIS, Energy, or ARKIS, Agriculture and Rural Areas, or AFKIS, Agriculture and Forestry, not to forget something. So we just left the A because it was there in the beginning, and Coca-Cola hasn't changed their name neither. It's a kind of label. Many people now know it, and we thought we would only cause confusion if we changed it. But please take a look to what we have here in red. And I want to emphasize that it's not only pure agriculture, but everything farming and rural activities automatically are in relation with. So it can be environment, climate, biodiversity, landscape, as well as consumers and citizens, and the whole food and non-food systems, including also the processing and the distribution chains, and anything you can imagine that has some kind of connection with the so-called narrow agriculture. And that's why in our new CAP, we have not only 9 common objectives, you see them here. There are 3 economic ones: viable income, competitiveness, power in the food chain. We also have 3 environmental oriented ones, one around climate change, one around environment, and also one around biodiversity and landscapes. And also, as part of sustainability, the 3rd pillar is the social aspects. So supporting generational renewal, vibrant rural areas, and also responding to citizens' concerns in terms of food and health quality. And our cross-cutting objective on knowledge and innovation goes across these whole 9 CAP objectives and is really a supportive and sometimes helps to prepare certain CAP measures. The whole aim is, of course, to speed up knowledge exchange. As I said, knowledge flows. That's the word you need to remember. Innovation and outcomes of innovation projects, and most of all, making sure that it is implemented into practice. And that's why we need to put the people together in the projects as well as in the networks and the platforms around AKIS, because then we are sure that practitioners also have a voice and that what comes out as a result will be really something that is feasible, applicable, understandable also for these practitioners. Now, this is the old slide, and it's not to position people or member states somewhere along the differences between weak and strong or fragmented and integrated, but just to say we are very different in Europe. And of course, since 2014, when this was made, thanks to a former project of Andrea, many things have changed. I suppose we have all, thanks to the EIP, moved a bit in the right direction of working more together, less fragmented. But still, the big lines are, when I read now CAP plans and the SWOT of the CAP plans, which are serious work and go really into depth, we still see that the most fragmented ones are Greece, Portugal, Romania, and that even the Netherlands, where we have strong and powerful, meaning a lot of money is being pushed into knowledge and innovation and the knowledge systems also, they still are fragmented. And also, if you have bilateral meetings with those countries, they agree and the SWOTs are still pointing in the same direction, while then the better ones are still in the same corner of the graph. But the only thing you have to remember is that we need to be flexible in terms of our measures, because we are very different. Also from the former presentation, this was clear, and there's no one size fits all, and we need really to work with the countries. And that's why I'm very happy that we will have a new big modern AKIS project for 7 years to further develop together with the member states these AKISs to get them better functioning. Where are we now and what will be next steps? So in the current period, we had almost all member states but one. Most of the rural development programs, there are 110 and 98, these are also regional programs, had EIP operational groups. We already have around 2,000, maybe 3,000 even, running and finished operational groups. We see around 2,400 of them in the DG-AGRI website. If you look it up, those are the ones that already handed over their information, but officially, according to the legislation, they are only obliged to do that at the end of the project. So all those who are still running may not be there. But this is the estimation from what we have from the annual reports that come in. And in fact, we still have 3.5 years to go. So we will probably end somewhere around 4,000 operational groups, while there were in fact 3,200 planned. So we can be very happy. Many measures don't get their goals, and even in the next cap, what we see in the draft plans that we are now assessing, we see that for a shorter period, only 5 years, we will have 6,500 operational groups. So this is amazing. Member states really embraced the concept and have put even more money in operational groups. They continue also training and advice, which is also part of AKIS. But we see a real push towards these operational groups and a lot of efforts, because if you really compare it per year, we're almost tripling the number of operational groups. This has also to see with what I just showed you, the different objectives that we cover now, which are economic, environmental, and social, and the fact that we have a state aid derogation, meaning that for everything which is not pure production for agriculture, we can also go up to 100% and pay the project in full from the funds. And this has been very important. Now, the horizon period that has passed, there we had 119 multi-actor projects in the part, the 4 billion that were for agriculture and rural areas. Now we have broadened that into what is called cluster 6. And in the first years there, we have already half of the projects. So also projects on oceans or on bio-based economy or whatever, also pick up that concept and apply it. And from that 9 billion already in the first work program of 2 years, half of the projects are multi-actor. And we go now with the programming for the next 2 years to 75%. Even in the joint undertaking on bio-based economy, they will start now applying the multi-actor approach. So it's really very useful. Everybody starts to understand, work with end users, work with everybody involved for the solution of a project. But this brings also challenges with us, for us, because there's an increasing volume. We have these practice abstracts as outcome, which is practical language, very short, but there's much more produced than that, and we have to manage that. And that's why we will have a dedicated project called Farm Book for 7 years, which will bring everything these projects produce into an EU-wide knowledge reservoir for practice, which then will be made compatible. And this is up to the member states to already keep this in mind now, that they have the right standards and the right IT language to connect, to be interoperable with this farm book at EU level, which will gradually replace what we have as practice abstracts, or maybe we keep it running side by side. We will see that later on. But anyway, in this farm book, we will have all materials, including education materials, which is then useful for our education actors in the AKIS. We will have now multilingual in the 23 languages, the outcomes of the projects. We will have a much better search function. Now it is with keywords, and it will become an artificial intelligence based search function. There will be a possibility to comment on projects, and in this way we will create interaction and build practice communities. And even some kind of quantification, like you also have in scientific abstracts, the high impact scientific abstracts, we will try to work with the kind of likes, because it is quite delicate to work with that, but we do want to try, and it is a project. We will see how it goes, but we understand from the research world that this has become so important. I would almost say over important, this judgment of what other people think about a project, that we're also going to try that out. Now, we need continuity continuation and change. You know that we will change into more looking to the whole system, but we keep our innovation projects further running. Now, the regulation, what does it say? That first of all, every member state should look to the organizational setup of their AKIS and look what they will adapt on the basis of the SWOT. How can they improve? We picked out 3 main pillars of the AKIS. It's not a full AKIS, but if you put together advisors, researchers, and CAP networks and say that they need to work together, and we want to see this in the CAP plans through concrete actions, concrete interventions, measures. If they are coming closer together, we will get much more knowledge flows. And of course, also much more competent advice, up-to-date knowledge, and innovation support services, which are now an obligation for all countries. We had a number of countries testing it out, a minority so far. Not even half of them had innovation support services, and now it will become an obligation, and member states are now reflecting on how to organize all that. Now, there are 4 big strands in the AKIS strategic approach. First of all, these knowledge flows and strengthening links between research and practice, strengthening also advisory services. We overhauled the whole old FAST system, which in the former presentation was still mentioned together with the start of the cross-compliance. We've deleted that completely. We want now that farm advisory services are delivered by anybody or are as inclusive as possible in terms of having all advisors in, training all advisors, and giving opportunity to all of them to act as innovation brokers. Then 3rd big strand is continuing and improving these interactive innovation projects, EIP operational group, multi-actor projects, also going more cross-border and making transnational calls. And then, of course, there's the digital tools that we can use for improving our AKIS, not only operational groups working on it, but also these knowledge reservoirs and also digital skills development. So a number of elements that will improve. Let me just look at the time. I think I still have 6 minutes, right?
Right.
So we're going a little bit quick here. You can have later the presentation and take a look at your ease. So in the first strand, very important is what the CAP networks, or the NRNs as they are currently still called, do to filter, summarize, and translate, because we don't have this translation yet for operational groups, the information that is relevant for their country. That's why probably they were already called coordination bodies. They are not yet, but they do a lot around AKIS, and it's very important. What is also important is creating knowledge centers, platforms, giving incentives to researchers and ensuring that their results are easy, understandable, and going into dissemination channels for farmers. We have also the possibility to make national thematic networks. We have at EU level the collecting of practice-oriented knowledge, but you could do the same at national level and combine that with regular face-to-face thematic events. The work of the CAP networks is very important, but also some soft ways can improve the knowledge flows, like you put together in one building research, advice, and networks, and maybe even people from education or farmers organizations. And this is very cheap, it's efficient and informal. People meet each other at lunch or at the coffee break, so that's very important. This slide I'm just going to skip because I already told you how we are expanding the multi-actor approach within Horizon Europe projects. And here's then the legal basis for the role of advisors in the future of the CAP. First of all, there must be advisory services in every country. Second, they should be integrated in the AKIS in an inclusive way and cover all the dimensions, economic, environmental, and social, and deliver up-to-date technology and science. They must be impartial and able to provide innovation support for operational groups. CAP networks will help a lot. I have 2 slides on examples of how these advisors can be integrated within the AKIS. They can be specialist advisors who help their fellows advisors. They can give, of course, the classical one-to-one holistic on-farm advice, also innovation support, but they can also be trainers. They can train advisors. If one advisor goes abroad, learns things, comes back, he can help his colleagues to know all about it too. They can join all kind of knowledge exchange event, on-farm demonstrations. They can lead multi-active thematic network, organize farm demonstrations, join research projects, operational groups, etc. They can go abroad and get new knowledge with a kind of mobility budget for advisors. And this is not all, there's much more. And you can find this in our tool, which I will give you the link at the end. Just to know that we want advisors to be in our projects. Currently, we only have 9% in our operational groups that are advisors, and advisors are the best multipliers ever. They know about practice and they can disseminate the outcomes. They can do even much more, as you see here. So we want this 9%, the blue part of our pie chart here, to become a real big part, even with the other types of participants. Then very quickly about brokering and facilitation, and about how it works all along from the capturing of grassroots innovative ideas. That's what an innovation support service is meant to do. So it's very individual, accompanying project proposals. There's a lot of misunderstanding here in the CAP plans that I see, that they think it's some group or some help desk or some group events. No, it's helping the project person with an idea to find the right partners, to develop it further, to make actions, to draft a proposal, look for the right and relevant actors, and eventually then get a project proposal, hope then that because it's a good one, a better one, that it gets selected, and then can still be facilitating the project and afterwards also disseminate the project. So it's all about what is very important, to pick up relevant grassroots innovative ideas. This is the essence of innovation support as we have it in the legislation. And the further support for innovation, which of course is also there, and you can see this on this slide here, is equally important. But we really want to capture these bottom-up ideas, because a lot of these entrepreneurial ideas is lost because farmers don't know where to go and who can help them, and they're not going to do it on their own. And I think this is real key also for advisors, and thanks to this project there's been a lot of awareness raising already, and I understand that people start to be aware about interactive innovation model, innovation support, but what they are still missing, and I hope you can help us to bring this message, is that we expect them to help also with this capturing of grassroots innovative ideas and develop them into innovation through a project. Now, I think it's almost time to stop, and I'm going to skip the rest of the slides because they are really easy to read. Most of the things I already said. Just want to emphasize the 2 main future instruments to help this AKIS to become better than in the past. On the one hand, this innovation hub, where to go with an idea and how to develop it, and then also collecting the knowledge through this knowledge reservoir, through specialist advisors who manage that knowledge. And there's a lot of links there where you can find more information. Also, CAP networks can do a lot. They are very important also to make the link with Horizon Europe projects. And we should not be afraid. Jean Monnet, when he started Europe, said what stops us is the fear of change, but nevertheless, it's on salvation that it's on change that our salvation depends. Because the word AKIS, I can really give the experience that I had. First terrified our own DG-AGRI, then terrified all the member states, and it will continue to terrify because it's a complex concept. There are many things, and the trick is to turn it into concrete interventions and concrete things. And that's what is the challenge, to do it. But we have to evolve towards AKIS. We have no choice. And these are the main new issues that we now offer to the member states to attract them to develop better their AKISs, advance payment, state aid derogation, higher co-financing, etc., collaboration projects under the CAP networks. We have a seminar where you can learn a lot. The link is here. Everything is recorded. We have a second seminar from last year dedicated for the CAP networks. Again, the link is here below. You can also read a lot in the SCAR AKIS report. You have here the particular sections where you can learn more. And also the EIP AGRI at the European level has made a lot of things, like a 3 minutes, and this is here the logo of their infographic. If somebody wants to know something about AKIS, you don't have much time. It's 3 minutes, it's nice to look at, and it explains AKIS. They also made the brochure. The link is in the next slide. And here is then the link to AKIS strategic approach in blue. And these are then the 3 slides that explain the content of what is in the link. I would thank you for listening to me, and we hope that these AKISs will now get better built and better interlinked also across the EU to speed up creativity and practice application, and to have better connectivity and circulation of information. Thanks very much. And if there is time for questions, we can take them. If the moderator feels we have to go to the next, I would say you have my mail here. If you want anything anything into depth, or you have any question, don't hesitate to send a message, and I will try to help you.
Thank you, Inge. Thank you for understanding us to better understand AKIS. Thank you for coming, because we all know you are very busy. And unfortunately, we don't have time for questions now, but I'm sure I will make sure they get collected and we circulate them to you so we can answer back to the person that made that question. Thank you so much, Inge. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
So next, we're going to move forward into the country reports. There is a slight modification on the agenda, and the first speaker will be Francisca Viveiros from CONSULAI, that is going to present the Portuguese report. Francisca,
hello.
Good morning.
Hello, how are you? How are you all? I hope you're well.
Where is yours?
Should I share my presentation?
Yeah, please. If you have any problem, we can do it for you. But
okay, I think I can, but we never know. Okay, so as you all know, I'm here to present the AKIS and advisory services in Portugal. We have studied this, the structure of how it works with project I2Connect. And so here were our findings for Portugal. So we have realized that more than 17% of agricultural holdings are specialized, and that the most common use are herbivores and permanent crops, both together. Here I have some photos of the landscape that we have here of these farms so that you can better understand what it is that I'm talking about. We have also discovered that forestry is the main business complement of agricultural holdings. A lot of them tend to have either, like in these photos, some forestry in the middle of the permanent crops or more to the side. Here we do have a lot of cork trees. Is a very big sector in Portugal. But however, since 2013, there has been an increase of unused forest lands throughout this time. We're trying to discover why, and we thought this might be one of the reasons to understand who farmers are in Portugal and how have they been evolving through the last years. So we have discovered that the average age of Portuguese farmers is 65 years, which is quite high. It is also the oldest of the average ages of the EU28 countries. And this is one of the reasons why the forest unused area has been increasing, because farmers are older and older. They don't have the ability to manage their land as well, and so some land is starting to be unused. Regarding the separation by gender, 34% of our farmers are actually women, the rest of them are men. We can also see that the academic background of almost 72% of farmers was only elementary school. This, of course, reflects a lot of these elder farmers that did not have access to as many opportunities in terms of education as the younger ones, which are in fact more specialized, but are still a very short percentage of the farmers in Portugal. We're very happy that we have these young and more educated farmers, but they are still sort of a rarity in Portugal, let's say like this. Regarding the family farming population, so it has also been decreasing throughout the recent years. There is more and more hired workforce on farms and less of a family farm population, as it had been up until the 20th century. So today, in 2016, when our data is from, it was only 6% of the population that worked as a family farm population. Now, regarding our AKIS diagram, I have it here. I hope you can see it. I know it's slightly short, but let me just give a very short overview. So we have divided it into 4 groups: the farming and forestry-based associations, the national and regional directorates, the research and education, and the knowledge and innovation providers, with the farmers and forestry always at the center. There are a lot of different interactions between these different groups. As you can see, the arrows that are stronger are the ones with the stronger connections, and the ones that, for instance, here between research and education and farming and forestry-based associations is not as strong. So here we have mostly on research and education, we have mostly research, universities, knowledge transfer. Here, national and regional directorates, we have more the regulations, the territorial planning, and so on. Here in the knowledge providers, we have all of the providers that have been providing technology, training, innovation, and so on. And finally, the farming and forestry-based associations are the ones that are more related to the cooperatives, the producers' organizations, and so on. Here I have a better explanation of these groups so that you can better see them, because I know they were slightly small. So as I was saying exactly, the responsibilities of each one of these groups is very well explained here, I would say, at least. So the farming and forestry-based associations are more responsible for the technical advisory, the training, the communication, benchmarking. A lot of them are focused on the funding investment projects to help farmers reach these communitary funds. For instance, the knowledge and innovation providers are focused on the knowledge transfer, the technical advisory as well, some training, and so much more. We have here private funding as well. And finally, the national and regional directories are the ones that take care of the policies, the regulations, the territory planning, the public funding, the audit and control, environmental and biodiversity guidelines. And finally, the research and education, I think, is the most straightforward one. It takes care of exactly research, education, knowledge transfer, demonstration, and so much more. And of course, the central group of our AKIS diagram is the farms and forestries, the one that we're all trying to get there, even though sometimes it's harder for the other main groups, the satellite groups, to reach and really understand what farmers need. Our goal is all to work together and to further develop farms and forestry. So I have one slide more about the characterization of advisory services provision. The technical support comes mainly from institutions and services. A lot of cooperatives and farmers associations are responsible for this technical advice. As we had seen in the previous slide, also some technical providers of technology and training and so on are also the ones that do some of the advisory services. However, in Portugal, it is very fragmented and dispersed throughout the country. There is not one central entity that manages all the advisory services, making it a bit harder sometimes for farmers to get good advisory services and to know who to ask for help. And this is one of our challenges as well. So all in all, the agriculture in Portugal, more than 70% of agricultural holdings are specialized. Forestry is the main business component of agriculture. We have some of the eldest farmers in Europe. 34% of our farmers are women. The academic backgrounds of most of them is only elementary school, however. Nevertheless, we're very determined to change that. And so the AKIS in Portugal has the following groups: so the farming and forestry based associations, knowledge and innovation providers, national and regional directorates, research and innovation, and of course the central group, which is farms and forestry. The goal is for all of them to work together to improve and to modernize farms and forestry. However, our advisory services here are very fragmented throughout our country. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I hope it was helpful. And if you have any questions, you can maybe write them in the chat if it's okay with our organization. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice meeting.
Obrigada, Francisca. Thanks for making the effort of coming. And we are going to collect the questions, and maybe we can use them later on the breakout groups. And I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So our next speaker, for our next presentation, I'd like to invite Sylvain Sturel from the Assemblée Permanente des Chambres d'Agriculture, which is also one of the coordinators of the I2Connect project, and will give us an overview of the situation in France. Thank you, Sylvain.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see my presentation also?
Perfectly. Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of the French AKIS and advisory services in France. This is based on the AKIS report, one of the 30 reports mentioned before, and it is also based on a previous report that was drafted in the framework of the Pro-AKIS project in 2014. It was drafted by Pierre Labarthe from INRA, who is participating today in our meeting. So I would like to thank him for this first meeting we used and updated. So just a brief word about agriculture in France. Nowadays, in 2020, we have a bit more than 400,000 farms in France, covering about 27 million hectares in the country. The average size of farms is 65 hectares now. As you can see on this table, there has been a very strong decrease in the number of farms, also in the land area, and at the same time an increase of the economic size of farms in France. So this trend has been going on for decades. At the same time, there has been a very strong specialization of farms according to the great types of productions. Farms specialized in rubber crops, in viticulture, and so on. And yes, we must point out the fact that farms specialized in livestock have been decreasing more than other production types. Another trend is the decrease of family labor. There are less people from the family working in farms and more wage laborers in farms. There's also an increase of the education level of farmers over time. And as it was mentioned by Portugal, there is also an aging of the farmers' population. Nowadays, we have 25% of our farmers who are more than 60 years old. Now the share of agriculture in the GDP is about 2% of the total GDP. This sounds very small, but in fact, agriculture still plays a very important role in France, an important role in rural development to provide life and activities in rural areas, and even a very important role in the French trade balance. In fact, the agriculture and agro-food sector still represents the third sector contributing to the French trade balance. So you can see a positive trade balance of 8 billion euros per year provided by this sector. On the next slide, but I'm not going to provide details about that. You can see that there are different production orientations in France. So there are more arable crops in the north and the center of France, more intensive livestock production in the west, less intensive livestock production in mountain ranges. And in other areas of France, agriculture is more diversified with special spots, special zones with more viticulture and fruit tree production, and also vegetable production, especially in the south and in the southwest of France. Now, I will also present another version of the AKIS diagram, where you can see the different main AKIS sectors in France. In blue color, you can see the public actors, in red color, the private actors, and in green, the farmers-based organizations. The public actors are, on the one hand, the public administrations, the Ministry of Agriculture, other ministries, and their agencies. Also the regional councils, which play an increasing role in this sector. And on the other hand, we have, of course, the education organizations, both the secondary education in agriculture and the higher education in agriculture. And lastly, there are strong public research institutes in agriculture. The main one is INRAE, but there are also other ones that are more specialized, like CIRAD, which is working with overseas areas. Then regarding agricultural research, we have the technical institutes, which are coordinated by an association called ACTA, which are implementing applied research in agriculture. Then we have the advisory organizations. I will provide more details about these organizations a bit later. We also have, of course, the farmers' organizations, which are in the middle of this diagram. the farmers organizations include the four farmers unions, the four main farmers unions in France, and a lot of specialized farmers organizations. For example, the Union for Organic Farming, Organic Farmers. And eventually, there are a lot of actors in the private sector, also in the upstream industries, in the downstream industries, and also veterinarians and several private advisors and private consultants. So again, this diagram is based on a previous diagram developed by the AKIS project in 2014, and it was updated because there were a few changes since that date. So I think I described already this slide. I'm going to move to the main characteristics of the French AKIS. I would like to say that there are very strong national public programs and public policies. There's significant public funding devoted to AKIS in France. About 30% of the ministry's budget is targeting different AKIS sectors, either the public research and education organizations, or the organizations which are involved in applied research and knowledge transfer. So there is a special fund called CASDA. This is an acronym. I will say a few words about it later. Of course, the European and regional funding also plays an important role. The CAP measures regarding AKIS represent about 3% of the CAP budget, and there are also specific programs at regional or at local level. There are also very strong coordination structures in France. For example, there is a coordination body at national and at regional level for this CASDA Fund for Applied Research and Knowledge Transfer. We also have several multi-actor schemes. They have been existing for almost 20 years, like the mixed technological networks. So it is very similar to thematic networks that were described by Inge Van Oost before. There are about 30 networks of this type, which are aiming to share knowledge between different types of actors on specific broad subjects like adaptation to climate change. We also have, of course, the APCA network within the French Rural Network that will be replaced now by the CAP networks. And we have, I think, almost 400 operational groups working in the field now. So regarding advisory services provision, there are a lot of advisory services providers. The main ones are the chambers of agriculture. They are farmers, cooperatives, and private traders providing advice. There are different farmers-based organizations, especially a group of farmers-based organizations that is called ONVAR. It is a French acronym, I'm sorry. These are national federations which are specialized on specific subjects, for example, on machineries for cooperatives for agricultural machineries, or on organic farming. We also have private providers of advisory services, private advisory companies, or companies specialized in advisory services in the livestock sector. The sources of funding are, on the one hand, the fees paid by farmers. On the other hand, there's a tax on unbuilt land, which is used for specific public assignments, and it is used mainly by the chambers of agriculture and also by the forest owners organization called CNPF. The CASDA, which was mentioned before, can be used by the chambers, by cooperatives, and also by this group of farmers-based organizations called ONVAR. And there are also specific fundings for specific programs which are often co-funded by European funds. what are the trends at the moment in advisory services? For some time already, there has been a regained interest in the holistic approach of advisory services and farms. For example, to provide strategic advice in plant protection. There has been also in the last decade a very strong regain of interest in group approaches, especially to support innovation and to support environmental friendly practices. And I would like to say also that there's a new, very new development, which is the separation of advisory services and the sale of plant protection products. So it was a law that was issued in 2019, and it is still producing reorganizations in the sector of advisory services in France. So yes, as a conclusion, we have a very strong diversity of actors. There are strong national policies. There are institutional arrangements to encourage cooperation and knowledge flows between actors. Over time, there has been a shift from co-management of advisory services and applied research between farmers' organizations and the state, and to delegation to organizations and to contracting with organizations. And although France is still a very centralized country compared to other countries, there is a shift to more decentralization and to more power, which is involving the regional councils, especially for the implementation of CAP measures. And last word about the challenges for AKIS stakeholders, I would say that the main challenge now is to work together to support the transition to multi-performing farm and forestry systems. Yes, thank you for your attention and sorry for being a bit long.
Merci, Sylvain. The speakers presenting the Greek and Cyprus case are Alex Koutsouris and Eleni Zarokosta from the Agricultural University of Athens. Please go ahead.
Good morning from Athens.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, please give me some minutes to share my screen. Can you hear? Can you see the presentation?
We see your screen, your full screen with your desktop.
Yeah, you have to open. I mean, it's just in the middle. Yes. You have to put it like go up in the on the right. Yeah.
Perfect now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you very much. I will present you AKIS and the advisory services in Greece and Cyprus, and I will start with Greece. Greece has a total land area which is about 130,000 square kilometers, of which 35% is farming land. Among the main characteristics of the agricultural sector in Greece is the domination of very small family farms, the aging farming population, and the low rate of farmers with full agricultural training, which is about 15 times less than the average in the European Union. In the diagram, we can see the output value at the main sectors of the agricultural production in 2018. Among the main actors, the main AKIS actors in Greece is the Ministry of Rural Development and Food, the Hellenic Agricultural Organization ELGO Dimitra. ELGO has 4 branches concerning research, vocational educational training, product certification and supervision, and milk and meat. What characterizes ELGO is weak internal and external connections, and especially the research branch is not well connected to both farmers and the other actors. And as a consequence, ELGO present not to contribute as much as it could in AKIS. And this is the same. This is the situation also for the higher education institutes, which overall, in general, are appear to be not well connected with the other AKIS actors, and their contribution is characterized by discontinuity. Farmers' cooperatives in Greece are, in general, very weak to develop independent action. However, there are variations, and there is a number of very dynamic producer groups and cooperatives that are very active in providing, in facilitating their membership access to knowledge. And they have developed collaborations with advisory services, with input companies, also with financial institutions. The partnership of DG-AGRI is a new actor in the landscape of AKIS in Greece in comparison with the previous report. DG has developed is a partnership of cooperatives with Piraeus Bank and Europublica Communication Technology Company. And DG has developed a broad network of collaborating local agronomists who provides advice, a variety of advisory services to farmers, and especially services on digitalization. In general, the main characteristic of the Greek AKIS is that it is highly fragmented, with uncoordinated and often ineffective actors. Cooperation, when it arises, is rather opportunistic, for example, in the framework of projects. There is no coherent policy and support for advisory services, and imported EU policies, the implementation of imported EU policies is delayed, for example, are delayed. For example, operational groups have not been activated so far in Greece. The establishment of a national farm advisory system is still in progress, and so far only the accreditation of a number of about 3,000 advisors has been attended, and also the provision of advice to farmers in the framework of Measure 2 is also has also been delayed. In the diagram of AKIS, we can see first of all the domination of vertical linkages, indicating the lack of coordination among the different types of AKIS. Another interesting point is the rising importance of processor of actors like from processor industry, exporters, wholesalers, actors from the secondary and tertiary sectors, which is not a surprise, given that they set the standards of agricultural production, the quality standards. In Greece, there is no public extension service, and in general, there is no public commitment in the provision of advice to farmers. The main advice providers are the input shops and the private independent consultants. There are about 4,000 input shops all over the country, and among them 700 are imported and direct clients of the input industry. Some of the most dynamic input shops have expanded their activities and offer also a variety of advisory services like business plans, etc. Input shops are very important and are very close to farmers, and they influence their decision making. However, input shops are not connected with any of other AKIS actors. Private independent consultants, also there's a variety which according to their scale of operation and their activities, the services they offer. At the local level, most independent consultants act at a local level and provide access to farmers to EU programs and subsidies. A small number of consultants are active at a national level, and they offer specialized advice on several issues like product certification, smart farming, and etc. Overall, the main characteristics, there is no change in the main characteristics of AKIS in Greece. AKIS remains so fragmented that several actors claim that it is not a system at all. Since we can see that multiple actors with mostly a top-down mentality and no back office support try to compete each other for the advisory field. In this landscape, it is difficult for farmers and especially for new entrants to find easy access to knowledge and to support their decision making, especially for complex issues. On the other hand, there's plenty of room for improvement, and there are also opportunities that derive from the new common agricultural policy and the proper utilization of its tools. I can continue with the AKIS in Cyprus, I think now. So some elements very quickly about AKIS in Cyprus. The agricultural sector in Cyprus, we can see also that family farms, small family farms dominate, the same as in Greece, aging farm population, and the very low rate of farmers with full agricultural training. However, the system, the AKIS system in AKIS is more a farm center in Cyprus. The main player is the Department of Agriculture, which includes an extension service, which provides advice for free to farmers, and which is the main coordination mechanism of the system. The Department of Agriculture includes also research branch, the Agricultural Research Institute, ARI. The Extension Service, the Department of Agriculture, has close collaboration with farmers, cooperatives, and producer groups. However, they have no links with input companies and private consultants. What is problematic in the functioning of the extension service in Cyprus is the ever increasing bureaucracy and the lack of staffing. And also researchers appear to be not always responsive to farmers' needs. And in general, we can see a need for intensive cooperation. Overall, the Department of Agriculture Education Service has a positive coordination role in Cyprus. However, there is a need for more focus on farmers' needs, for collaborative research and enhancement of farmers' occupational training, as well to encourage farmers' involvement in interactive initiatives. Thank you very much.
Eucharisto, Eleni. We are going to enjoy and have ourselves a little break. See you at 50 minutes, and we will continue with the breakout groups. So enjoy, have a coffee, and please do come back.
Thank you.
A couple of minutes to make sure everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
And in a few seconds we will start, okay? Okay, so I guess everyone is back by now, and I'd like to make everyone aware that the questions that have been made in the chat have already been responded by Sylvain and Sangeun. So please take a look to them, and also that for this second part of country reports, the first speaker is going to be Juan Pedro Romero from the Spanish Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. And he will present the Spanish report accordingly. Juan Pedro.
All right, Iratxe, thank you very much indeed. I'm gonna put the presentation. Wait for me for a minute. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about AKIS in Spain. So let's talk about AKIS. Shall we? I'm Juan Pedro Romero. I belong to the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food in Spain. We'll be talking about AKIS for a little while. Spain is a decentralized country. But as everybody knows, you can see in the map, we are a yellow one country surrounded by a lot of greens, but that's not a big deal, I think. But on the other hand, we aren't an unaffected country. We have several good examples of remarkable AKIS, like Navarre, Catalonia, Aragon, Basque Country, Andalusia, etc. I can't name all of them, guys, sorry about it. There are 17 Spanish regions which have the competence, the responsibilities, and the decision-making powers. And that's one of the main points of AKIS. Because of the last Spanish constitution in 1978 and the 17 autonomy statutes, that is the rule of law in our country, the situation is that we are a very decentralized country, as everybody knows. Talking about the history of the AKIS in Spain, we need to be back to the Spanish Civil War during the 30s. Spain was completely devastated, and we need to feed the population to create knowledge and to renew the system. And what did we do about it? During the 50s, we created the agricultural extension services. That was a remarkable event, and that's why we could modernize the system. Since the beginning of the democracy, after the dictatorship of General Franco, everybody knows, we created a new structure in the middle of the old agricultural extension services. We started to belong to the European Union and signed a lot of international treaties, and this country started to be a modern country in the general terms of European countries. And we are working together to improve the situation in the framework of the new CAP period, 2023-2027. And in the middle of the new CAP period is being a little bit of changes about the AKIS structure. And I want to talk about that the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries, and Food created the focus group on advisory service within the AKIS 2019 to 2020. That was a remarkable group of people in which with 30 main experts who belong to private companies, to the farm-based organizations, and universities, etc. And they created a lot of knowledge and suitable publication about it. Talking about the situation in Spain of the agriculture, it's very important to see the map and to realize that Spain is greener than everybody thinks. The agricultural area is 23.84 million hectares of 505,983 square kilometers. And the forest wooded land is about 28 million hectares. And talking about forestry areas, there is around 36.3% of surface in Spain. And other wooded lands, which include rocks and shrubs and grasslands, etc., it's about 19% of the Spanish surface. Talking about the population, there is 84% of the land, but only 16% of the population lives in rural areas. That's why the demographic challenge that our government is trying to deal with it.
Sorry, Juan Pedro, could I just interrupt, because we are still seeing the slide with the map of Spain, and I think you're already at the next slide. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's true. It's true that we are in the background, so you have to just move forward. You are in the slide 3. So you have to just
move and try to put.
So you are in in 4, numbers and statistics.
Are you seeing the background, number and statistics?
Yes.
Because I'm talking about this one.
Yes, now it's okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
you. And the agri-food sector is very important. It's a key part of the Spanish economy because there is 9.7% of the GDP which is part of this sector. It's a strategic sector with a solid multiplier effect. And there is also a positive trade balance because the superávit is around 18 million euros. One of the reasons of the diversity of the agriculture in Spain, apart of the weather, the kind of soils, the situation, and the way to make profitable a holding, we can find around 914,871 holdings according to the statistics in 2020. So next slide. Well, talking about the AKIS diagram, is everybody seeing the AKIS diagram? Because I don't want to be talking about another slide.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I think you know, the core and the center of the system are the farmers and foresters as well. But there is a constellation of ministries involved in the AKIS system. The most important ones are the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Science, and the Ministry of Industry. But there are more involved because there are too many ministries in our administration. And they are connected with the public research centers, the most remarkable and important one representation of the science in agriculture might be INEA. And there are some representations in every single region that can be similar or comparable to INEA. And you can see the university RD groups, which are key in the system. It's very important to comment a little bit about the education and training in Spain. To the top level, there are universities with a large academic offer talking about agriculture and forestry as well. And there are also vocational training centers, which is completely decentralized, and the competence belong to the regions, of course, and the universities as well, because I didn't talk about it. And if I mention public and non-formal training centers, there are many of them, and some of them are subsidized with public funds, and others are private or semi-private. If we mention the situation of the regional governments, I think it's kind of similar to the central government, but with the competences of the advisory services and everything talking about the management in agriculture, rural development, environment protection, and forestry. And some of them didn't have some regional public agencies. One of the most important parts of the systems are the agri-food cooperatives, because it's a way to create knowledge and to be close to the farmer and foresters as well. And linked to these cooperatives, there are several agri-food industries. They created a lot of profitable opportunities, and they are related to the food chain retailers. And there are also important services companies with tech suppliers and input suppliers. Moreover, there are several NGOs with environmentalists, women associations, organic associations, etc. And there are also public and private partnerships. There is a several gap of knowledge talking about the private sector, but I'll be talking about it later. And in these private partnerships are involved tech platforms of wine, biotech, biomass, Vet+I, and Food for Life. And there are also some private and financial entities with business angels and venture capital involved. And last but not least, it's very important to name the tech centers, because they are part of the way we are going to reinforce digitization and the sector as well. And one of the ways to reinforce cooperation, coordination, or participation for the Ministry of Agriculture is to create an AKIS coordination body. Talking about the main actors of Spain, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the Spanish AKIS shows a wide range of actors. The main public authorities involved are the central government and the regional governments with the company.
We still see the slide on the AKIS diagram. Okay, and please remember the timing. All right, I'll be using this one. I think. Are you watching the main actors of Spain? Is a suitable table? Yes, we are seeing the correct slide. I keep going. The main public authorities, as I mentioned, are the central government with the ministries involved in the AKIS and the regional governments. And it's kind of particular in our country because there are islands and there are two autonomous cities, Ceuta and Melilla, and the situation is very different in every single region of Spain. Talking about research and education, the education and agricultural training is kind of a mixture between public and private. But most of the universities in Spain are public. The core of the system about research and a national point for the agriculture system is the National Institute for Agricultural and Food Research and Technology, CSIC-INIA. And there are several regional institutes for agricultural and food research and technology. Every single region in Spain has at least one. And there are also several tech centers. Some of them are private, and other ones are public, and other ones are a mixture between a public and private partnership. Regardless, farmers, foresters, and farmer-forester-based organizations, you know, the center of the system are farmers and foresters. Everybody in these sectors works especially for all of them. And in some of the main organizations involved in these kind of issues are the agri-food cooperatives and the producers organizations. And also there is one important piece of the system, farmers and foresters, professional organizations, FPOs. And there are also other farmers and forester organizations which are part of the system. Talking about the private sector, there are several agri-food industries in the system, and there are also input and services companies, a lot of public and private partnerships, and it's growing a lot in talking about digitization topics because there are several technology organizations which are creating a new kind of knowledge. And there are also some private and financial entities, as I mentioned earlier. Talking about non-governmental organizations, I mentioned before, but there are organic organizations, and there are environmentalists and women organizations and other kinds of organizations involved in the system. And as I told you earlier, there were several conclusions of the focus group in Spain. One of the conclusions... we are on the main characteristic of the AKIS slide. I am not sure if you are in the... Well, I'm gonna do it. And also, please, to remind you, we are short on time. All right, we are in the main characteristics of the AKIS? Yeah, right, we are. All right. You know, I mentioned we are a decentralized and fragmented country, but very efficient, especially in some regions of Spain. The governance is very complex, but we are trying to improve that. And one of the main problems for farmers and foresters are the bureaucracy and the huge amount of administrative burden that there is in our country. The system is very diverse, and this is a good opportunity and an added value as well. It's a multi-actor system with a lot of stakeholders involved in the system. There is a lack of data. I'm going to mention
later, and academia must be involved in the system. And we need to boost cooperation, especially focusing on the creation of innovation hubs, living labs, and reinforcing the participation of AEP operational groups and innovative projects. We need to create more platforms in order to have a list of advisors, and we need to reinforce the soft skills of farmers and foresters, because all of them have a kind of resistance to change, and there is no appreciation of advisors, especially talking about salaries. Am I in the characterization of advisory service provision in this slide? All right, I'm gonna keep talking anyway. One of the conclusions of the service is we need to involve the private sector and improve data, because there is a lack of data and we need to work on it. Edward Deming used to say, in God we trust, all others must bring data. And I totally agree with him. We need to provide more data and better data, especially in terms of private sector. Cooperation of freelance of advisors is not good enough sometimes, but I think that there is an important effort for the public administrations, the private sector, the knowledge system in universities and science institutions to reinforce cooperation. One of the conclusions of the I2Connect survey launched in Spain are all advisors, whether individual or belonging to an organization, employ various advisory methods, mainly individual methods rather than group-based advisory. Individual advisory via digital apps is increasingly used by advisors. They are really into smartphones and these kind of things. And freelance advisors uses less group advisory methods than the advisors who represent an organization. To sum up, there are 13 responses. 23 claim to have changed their working method towards more digital formulas, implementing the use of different ICTs. And to finish, I'm gonna get a try. Give the slide. Is the slide working? All right. I'm gonna finish, don't worry, guys. The fragmentary structure of the current Spanish AKIS are gonna be solved or partially solved with the creation of an AKIS coordination body. It's gonna be like a mixture of a council and a committee. And we are going to create with the collaboration of the 17 regions in Spain. And there is a large number of factors and different relationships between them, which provides a great variety and diversity of resources in Spain. Talking about the new possibilities offered by the new period of the CAP for strengthening of the AKIS, Inge said everything that everybody can know, and I'm not gonna say anything else. I'm talking about another one of the most important points of this project, the innovative co-creation and the innovative knowledge and methods. We are going to improve the advisory methodology and the way to involve projects with the AKIS. And the Ministry of Agriculture is working to create a new platform to connect all the advisors in Spain who will be interested in being part of it. And that's all. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Gracias, Juan Pedro. So our last report is a joint report from the Italian and Maltese speakers. And they are Patrizia Proietti and Valentina Carta, both from the Council for Agricultural Research and Agriculture Economic Analysis. Thank you, ladies. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have a joint report. We have two single reports, but we will try to stay in the time. So the AKIS advisory services in advisory services in Italy. Oh, the background. First, we have a wide variety of farming systems in Italy that are shaped, have been shaped throughout the centuries by the joint action of climate and morphological feature, and also by different history among the country. So we can speak of different farming. We have a lot of different farming systems, widening from mountains, hills, and plains. We have very intensive agriculture, and together we have small farms, organic farms, conventional farms. We have a lot of different production crops, vegetables, and also grapes, olive fruit. So we have a very different, we cannot speak of one single model of agricultural system, but we have to speak of a different farming system with different issues and needs. And moreover, we 31% of the land is covered by wood. So we have these differences among the two agricultural knowledge innovation system and the forestry knowledge innovation system. And also I have to say that the woodland has a marginal value on the economy. Because the lack of national timber industry in Italy. However, it is very important for the landscape, and in the last year, woodland is valorized by different alternative economic way of valorizing woodlands. Differences are also from north to center and south, but I go over. So we try to, basing on this different system, we try to design a single national AKIS, and you can see here more or less the pictures and the relationship between the different actors. But we try to keep separate the two AKIS, forestry and agricultural, because there are very big differences between them, and also different actors are involved. So you can see these different diagrams. Now I'm going to more in depth in explaining this system. So as I said, we have a plurality of system, and I can say that Italy, the Italian AKIS is a complex, multi-actor, multi-level system that is characterized by a large number of entities and governance levels. So this is mainly due to the division of roles between the state, the national government, and the regional governments. And so, due to this, we have at least 21 regional AKIS in Italy that show different degrees of cohesion and organization. And also the development of system thinking, common vision, commitment by the actors that populated them is very related to the cultural and relational specificities of each regional territories. And so they are shaped by farming system, policy delivery, socio-economic background, environmental, orographic feature, and so on. So, however, we can say that these different AKIS are really strongly interconnected between them and between them and the national level. Also because actors are part of regional AKIS are also part of the national AKIS. So, and I can say that these actors represent a big resource in terms of cross-fertilization between different AKIS systems. However, I can say that knowledge flows between the AKIS actors depend a lot on the size scale considered and the regional AKIS of reference. we can observe that at local level, we have a presence of stronger relationship between different AKIS actors and local learning and innovation networks. So at the level of micro AKIS that are also shaped by the recent European policies about cooperation measure, we can observe also interactive knowledge transfer model between these actors and very strong linkages in many cases. Beyond the local dimension, we can observe more formal knowledge flows that we can say that are stronger because they are formal, but really they are characterized by a low degree of system perspective. So at the national level, we have institutionalized relations in which representative institutions are involved, not real actor, but representative, and this representation is often weak. And at the national level, we can say that there is a prevalence of traditional knowledge transfer model. The intensity of relations between AKIS actors vary according to the different actors. And for example, from universities are more related with research institutes and with the institutions, while we can say on the other side, for example, that advisory services are more related obviously with farmers union, agri-food industry, and so on. We have a lot, we can show a lot of diagrams about this flow, but we have no time. And we can say that the coordination structure are articulated also by area of knowledge, so research innovation, education, advisory extension services, and also at national and regional levels. And the coordination bodies are more or less set up to address interinstitutional collaboration and dialogue to ensure consistency of policies, programs, and project design. In particular, we can identify two main AKIS coordination bodies that are the Interregional Network for Agricultural, Forestry, Aquaculture, and Fisheries Research, and the National Rural Networks. Both of these networks that are strongly interrelated play a big role in defining common vision and supporting the implementation of research and innovation policies and programs, mediating different positions and also articulating demand. In fact, you can see we have different regulation in Italy for research and innovation. And just going quickly, I can say that there is a large number of bodies that are responsible for research in the agricultural and forestry sector. And there are also a high number and variety of implementing bodies, both public and private. Especially, we can observe a strong dynamism of private agricultural research, especially at territorial level, and research, but also innovation. And we can say on the right side, private research institutes, universities spin-off, but also high-value added firms, farmer network, organization, consortia, and so on. So a lot of actors. And we can observe a lot of actors also in the education sector, in which we have 153 agricultural institutes, 24 departments of agricultural science, 13 departments of veterinary medical science, and each of them has a high degree of autonomy. There is a very big variety of actors, and also within the training with public and private implementing bodies, and adopting this have the presence. Sorry, and we have the presence of new actors that mainly act as innovation support services. And these new actors came in the last years from from other sectors than agriculture. And also due to the emergence of new needs, especially related to innovation, to cooperation measure, there was also a reorganization of structure and services of traditional structure and services to support these innovation processes. So we can observe a reorganization of public extension agency, where they, in the region that in which they still exist, but there was also a restructuring of services supplied by farmer unions, and also by the freelance advisors, which were forced by the policy delivery to act together to offer a wide variety of services. And we can observe a prevailing scale at a regional level in which advisory services operate, mainly through European funds, and the clients, but also the topics are different from one region to another, from the providers, from the continental advice, productive sector regions, and so on. So it's quite different to identify clients and topic without going in depth. They mainly use advisory methods, and human resource are mainly men, with a good wide presence of outsourcing freelance workings within the farmers unions. The skills are quite good, mainly technical competencies, and we observe a weakness in brokerage skill, mediation, facilitation, so the new skills that are required for innovation. Other actors are also shaping the AKIS system, widening from farmer organization networks, operational groups, bio-district, and a good wide variety of organizations that more or less can influence the AKIS system. And just going to the end, so we can say that Italy is characterized by a plurality of AKIS, representing different degrees of structuring and functioning, plurality of actors, but with a good cross-verticalization among these different AKIS levels. And we can say that the Italian AKIS is a system transition that is characterized by the emergencies of new actors and the organization of services, and a slow but progressive awareness about new possibilities for innovation and knowledge sharing. So I finished my presentation, and I give the floor to Valentina.
Okay, thank you, Patrizia. Good morning, everyone. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet. We are seeing.
No. Okay. Okay. Now, what about now?
Now we can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to provide you a brief overview of the AKIS and advisory services in Malta. That, as you know, is a very small country, so it of course affect the agriculture in the island, which has a strong identity value for the local communities, but has always had a little relevance for the country's economy. However, the agriculture has been capable to get self-sufficiency in certain key fresh products, such as milk, fruit, and vegetables. But the local food sector is mainly dependent on imports. So this importance, the little importance of the sector is reflected also in the gross value added of agriculture. That is only the 0.9% of the total gross value added, and also in the workforce involved in agriculture, forestry, and fishery. That is only the 0.9% of the workers in Malta. Just few other information about the agriculture in Malta. The farms are quite small and with scattered parcel. So this make the local agriculture poorly profitable, despite the financial effort put into place by the RDP, and farming activities are carried out by aging population, a progressively aging population. So the innovation adoption is quite difficult at the moment. Forestry itself has no economic meaning in Malta, as a forestry-related industry doesn't exist. So few of the key characteristics of the AKIS in Malta. The AKIS is characterized by a little number of actors, and this is also coherent with the dimension of the island itself. And these actors have a low level of coordination and interaction in this moment, and the lack of systemic vision. This is mostly due to the lack of effective guidance and a lack of a strategic visioning of the research and innovation bodies. But we can see that this AKIS is resilient, even if it's far from being defined an ecosystem of innovation. In fact, it is able to compensate the gap of the key local capacities and skills using external relations. In fact, the foreign actors are quite important in the AKIS of Malta, and they ensure a center level of dynamism and keeping up to date with research and innovations that are already underway in other member states. What about the relation and the knowledge flows in Malta? We can say that the relationship between government bodies and the agriculture community are only defined around the rural development program, implementation activities, and in general, the knowledge flow are driven by the traditional methods of knowledge transfer, so the circular and interactive models at the moments are hardly implemented. Here we can see the diagram of the AKIS of Malta. So as you can see at the top of the diagram, the governance of the system is fragmented into a relatively large number of ministries and ministerial bodies. They seem to have designing methods and implementation tools that still have sectorial approach. However, over the last years, consultative and participatory methods were endorsed. So there is a transitional phase in the AKIS of Malta. In the green area, we can see the research, education, and vocational training actors that are mainly concentrating within two public organisms. Let's say AMCAS, that is the Malta College of Arts and Technology, and the University of Malta. Both of them have remarkably improved their activity in the last years. And also the Ministry of Education provide for adult education and through the courses concerning specific professional training. The farmer-based organization in the yellow side are the key players of the AKIS of Malta. Cooperatives and producers organization, in fact, have ever had a significant role in fostering knowledge and enhanced skills of their members in Malta. They represent the most important reference point for farmers and for the organization of the sales on the markets. And they are a crucial hub of knowledge flows within the AKIS of Malta. In the last 2 decades, new farmer-based organizations have been set up that include in particular young farmers or farmers that want to improve agricultural sustainability. Malta Youth in Agriculture Foundation and Mary Rural Network are examples of this new farmer-based organization. Input providers in the brown area are well established in Malta, and they are well connected, especially with the farmer-based organization. And lastly, new actors such as LEGs, private companies, local action groups have emerged, providing a range of technical advices. Moreover, a characterizing component of the Maltese AKIS is the presence of some foreign players coming mainly from the Mediterranean area. They can be considered as internalized actor of the local AKIS because they are strongly integrated within it and within the actor of the AKIS. Focusing the attention on the advisory service provision, we can say that farm advisory services Malta, as I've already mentioned, are the main actors. These services are provided by few private, mostly farm-based organization and government body, that is AgriConnect. So they present the private and the government body different degree on introduction and different approaches within the AKIS of the island, and have a clear distribution of the competencies on advisory topics. Indeed, two main types of advisory support are required in countries. So basically on the generalist animators and the specialist advisors to offer targeted help to particular sectorial activities. Over the last two programming periods of the European funds, other type of services supplier have emerged on the AKIS of Malta, and this is they can provide more clean innovation support functions and specialized advice, such as innovation brokering, digitalization, etc. There are no advisory infrastructure, while a new digital hub will be established with the purpose of collecting farming data and providing tailored advisory services. What about the methods and the topics of the advisory services provision? We can say that the topics and methods are clearly defined by the policy framework on the farm advisory suppliers. This regulation marks a shift from an advice basically focused on cost compliance, that was the previous regulation, to a more holistic range of advisory topics and innovative methods, which in principle should better address the needs of local farming system. The methods, we can say that individual advisory remains the most used advisory methods, both face-to-face, on site, but also at the desk, and also using digital apps such as Skype, WhatsApp, and so on. However, the government organization, in addition, provide also mass media advice using internet, such as information provided by the website, the blogs, forums, and also the National Rural Network provide information using mass media or organize also seminars and meetings about advisory topics. On group advisors and peer-to-peer learning is only used by NGOs and the cooperatives or the producer organization. And also the pandemic didn't change so much the advisory methods in the public providers, that has intensified the face-to-face method outside the offices, but it affected mostly the private organization that has shifted to the digital advisory methods. So just to summarize, the AKIS of Malta, we can say that is characterized by the little number of actors at the low level of coordination. However, there is a strong presence of external actors that ensure the functioning of the AKIS. So the AKIS is local, but not fully indigenous. They're coming back to a nationalized model of advisory services combined with the low relevance of the sector itself and the low propensity of farmers to use the private advisory services are at the basis of the current state of the agricultural services in Malta. However, within the private and farmers-based advisory organization, there seems to be a certain dynamism and a pluralism of providers and methods, topics, and tools used. So this new generation of farmers and new actors can, with a systemic view and thinking and a systemic visioning, can be seen as a good perspective for the future of the AKIS of Malta. Thank you so much.
Thank you, grazie. We are, after receiving all this input from the different countries, we are going to jump into the breakout group discussion. So we are going to sort out a couple of breakout groups. And let me share a slide. Give me a second. Okay. Let me know if you see it. Someone?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, thank you. So we are using this input to move to the joint discussion in the breakout groups. And we are going to have two breakout groups. Group number one is going to have the discussion regarding Portugal, France, Greece, and Cyprus. The presenters of the report, except for our Portuguese colleague, who is really busy today and made a great effort to come here and present, is not going to be able to make it, but the rest of the presenters are going to be there. Also, Silvio Simon from the Croatian Ministry of Agriculture, who's going to be the moderator, while the facilitator role is going to be held by Domagoj Gorup from the Southeast European Network of Advisory Services. Meanwhile, the group number two will discuss Spain, Italy, and Malta. It's going to be led by Osren Osro as the moderator and Mirela Mativic as the facilitator, both from the Croatian Ministry of Agriculture. So we encourage participants that belong to the featured countries to join the group of your country, and to any other participants, you are welcome to join the group of your preference. We are going to have a 35-minute discussion, and afterwards, the feedback and conclusions or remarks will be shared in a plenary session. So, Liga, if you please help me to set the breakout groups.
Yep. The rooms are open and participants are invited to join manually. So which room you prefer, you can manually join. And if you have some problems, just let us know and we will transfer you to this room you would like to join. So.
Thank you, Liga.
I see that people are already joining the groups, but many are still in the main room. So who?
Sorry, I did not understand. How can I join a group?
Which room you would like to join, then we can transfer you.
I'm from Spain, so I guess group 2.
Yeah, one moment. Room 2. Yeah.
In fact, you have to go to the.
Hello, I'm from group 1. Can you please transfer me?
Okay, so it's simple. I mean, you have to go close to the registration. There's a French. There's division group. So it's you have to click in the square that is in a small, like 4 squares, and then you join the room that you want. So room 1 is Portugal, France, Greece, and Cyprus, and the group 2, so it's the rest of Spain, Italy, Malta. So that's all. It's not very complicated. Okay, so I just joined. Vous invite à rejoindre room 1. Okay, so I go to the first.
Probably it is not so complicated, but I cannot go. Please, could you transfer me to group 1?
Yeah, Eleni, no more.
Thank you.
Sorry, Giga, we cannot find the link. Could you transfer Valentina, Patrizia, and Simona to the group 1, to the group Italy and Malta?
Yeah, thank you, Liga.
So Italy and Malta is group 1, if I, yep.
Ahora te lo explico, que tengo que estar ordenado.
So who would like to join one of the groups? Just let me know and I can help you with the transfer.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes. So welcome back. I hope you had fruitful discussions. Now we are going to do the feedback compilation from both working groups. So please, I'd like to invite first Silvio Simon, so he can explain us the feedback and the conclusions regarding the group number 1. I don't know if Silvio, are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was on mute. So in the first group, we discussed a lot on the differences and similarities between France, Portugal, Greece, and Cyprus AKIS system. What we discussed and concluded is that there are quite a few differences in the functioning, with France and Portugal being the good one, maybe being the functioning ones, and Greece and Cyprus being less functional, and that it's a complex mix of reasons, also with the history, one of the important ones. With France, what could be identified as a strength is the long continuity in the public policies regarding the AKIS, and resulting in the current system, which is very diverse, with a strong public funding and high connections, and a lot of involvement directly with the farmers and farmers organizations. The weaknesses currently identified are also regarding the farmers. Not every one of them, not every type of the farmers, namely small ones, new ones, and very big ones, the multinational companies, are not a part of the AKIS. Only the mainstream groups are part. And also the reach of the AKIS stakeholders is not very complete. It could be improved. Also, another point that was taken out, the management of the knowledge flow is an important part of the AKIS. At the moment, maybe too much knowledge is available and created, being it a challenge to digest what is really necessary for the farmer. With the Portugal, the good thing, one of the main strengths is the national database of the advisors, which enables every other stakeholder to identify the proper contact person to create its own network to find a solution to the problem. And also that resulted in a strong link between farming and forestry associations and the knowledge innovation providers. While at the same time having a relatively negative structure of the whole agriculture system, with the oldest farmers, relatively low number of area per farmer, and also as a challenge, there is a need to inform the farmers more regularly, so the knowledge flow could be improved. With Greece and Cyprus having a lot of similarities in the AKIS system, we discussed and then concluded that the level of centralization is quite big, while Greece doesn't basically have in the last years the advisory system because of the public and political problems, without support of the high authorities, and that resulted in a low connection to the farmers and highly fragmented and basically ineffective AKIS systems. While in Cyprus, what is included, what is also identified as a main challenge is the administrative burden becoming more and more a part of the advisory work as a public advisory service, and taking them out of the connection with the farmers and their needs, and becoming a bureaucratic officer, basically, which is a very dangerous thing to do. Also, on the second part of the discussion, we try to identify the commonalities and what are the key messages between the four AKIS systems, and what was shown and concluded is that they are all centralized, but with different levels of diverse actors and their involvement in them. Farmer-based organizations, forest-based organizations are an important part of the functioning, and it should be noted that that is one of the topics to cover as much as possible in the functioning AKIS systems. More actors included in the AKIS result after longer time. So it's a sort of good news for the new countries just developing the AKIS systems. The time is needed to function properly, but also it could be a bad point, complexity, when it becomes very diverse with a lot of stakeholders involved, a lot of institutions, makes it very hard to coordinate, also to analyze the connections and the activities going on. Some duplication can be seen. Geographical and historical context is an important part of any country's AKIS. So what could be seen are the similarities between France and Portugal system, which are also geographically closer, and Greece and Cyprus have some similarities and are geographically closer. So no official magic rule exists. It could be, it must be tailor-made for every country by itself. And also the stronger links are needed, the database of the advisors on a national, at least the national level, but what we need is a European level, like the advisor database in I2Connect is also a prerequisite for a proper network that must be created for the functioning AKIS. It's roughly the discussion of the first group.
Thank you, Silvio. So I'm going to give word to Adrian, who will give us the conclusions in the group number 2.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Mirela, could you please put our...
One moment, please.
So we were talking about Italy and Spain and Malta, and come to conclusion that Italy and Spain have a similar problems. Mirela. Sorry for technical day. The same problems were the fragmentation, as we all agreed that fragmentation is not the best word, but the diversity in not so good sense, diversity of systems, diversity of many systems that were in the past. So as Silvia said, the coordination of those diverse systems are very difficult, and governance, the way of the governing and the state organization is similar in Spain and Italy, so we have similarities.
Can you
Mirela.
Next slide. Just we see the presentation.
Now I'll just put the presentation mode and okay. So another problem with Italy and Spain was the same. The bureaucracy, the bureaucracy burden is very high, and advisors tend to become, as Silvia said, bureaucratic officers. So instead of being brokers and facilitators, they are wasting time with the bureaucracy. So that was the commonalities. Other thing is that we have a example of one small organization, one small state like Malta, and the organization of a small state like this is not good, as we can hear. You would say that small things are more easier to organize, but it's not the case. Mirela, could you please put the strengths and weaknesses on screen?
Guys, slide 2, in fact, because we are just...
Mirela, do you hear us? Do you hear me?
Maybe not.
Yes, I hear you.
Can you put the strengths and weaknesses?
So you have to click for the next slide.
I know. I only do have some technical problem.
Just click. Yeah, there's okay.
And could you put the presentation mode, please, so we can see better?
But we can see.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, it's okay. We can see the table.
As you see, the Spain has this diverse system, many actors involved. In this case, it's good, but organizing all this can be bad. So the fragmentation is in a linkage with that. Bureaucracy is a big burden. Good transfer of knowledge, as there is a big pool of knowledge. As Sylvia said, in France, maybe too much knowledge and too many databases. Okay, and for Italy, also high number of actors, a big country, another big country, knowledge reservoir, national rural network, national base of professionals. Yes, there is a big number of the professionalists. Also long-term, lifelong education is present, and coordination between bodies in AKIS. Yes, bureaucracy, it needs stronger linkage between actors, connection between farmers, the same with all, I think. For Malta is a bit specific, because the farming and the farms are just side job for them. So tourism is the main goal for them, but also we can learn from some small country like this what can be and what cannot be done. Also, Mirella, could you put the commonalities up? Mirella?
Of course, of course. No.
Okay, commonalities as we see here are fragmentation, diversification of system, and bureaucracy. And one thing we are all agreed to take home message is to.
Do you see it, maybe?
Yes, we saw it. We see it. As we all agree, that take-home message would be that Italy and Spain can learn from one another, because they have the same problem with the organizations, and two big actor pool. So somebody proposed that some kind of platform for the exchange could be organized. I think that's it. That's all from our conclusions.
Thank you, Osren.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are going to move into the summary of main insights and lessons from this presentation and discussions for today's workshop. Unfortunately, Andrea had to leave because we got delayed. So in turn, Juan Pedro Romero from MAPA, from the Spanish Ministry, is going to take care. But before that, please make sure you complete the poll. We are going to paste a link in the chat room, and it's going to be useful for everyone to evaluate this present workshop. So I would thank you if you take the time to do it when you have a moment. So without further delay, Juan Pedro, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm back. I'm not Andrea, as everybody can see, but what am I supposed to do? All right. Thank you very much, Iratxe, because you did a great work as a presenter of this event. And I think it was a very useful event, and it's quite useful to gather together sometimes, because it's the best way to create knowledge and to have suitable conclusions about the AKIS. The workshop started at 9 o'clock with a great introduction of the All right.
Sorry, I just got noticed that Andrea is in the meeting, so maybe she can do the speak as planned. I don't know. Andrea, are you there? Can you?
I don't have any problem. Andrea, can you take the floor or not?
Hello, yes.
I didn't notice you. You came back. I apologize for that.
Yeah, it's no problem. I really would have liked that we had more a discussion even than just giving kind of a summary talk, because I find it so interesting. But I'm happy to give a few observations. Maybe it can be shorter, and then still there's more time for a final talk from other sides. I think from what we could have seen from the presentations, it becomes apparent that this AKIS concept, with its terms and with its way to operationalize the idea of the various knowledge services, it's really helpful. It is a good basis to explain situations in the countries for the sectors, and also to be sure that we talk about the same things. So we have criteria, we have indicators, we have features that help us to look at particular parts and even to somehow look in a comparative way. And then secondly, we see that this comparative appraisal also has its strengths and weaknesses. So you saw several times this graph with the fragmented and the integrated towards the weak and the strong AKISs. And from further other discussions, we know that some countries are not happy with this, their place in this graph. And this is also the reason why we didn't reproduce this, because it is quite simplifying the situation. And we did not maintain the category of weak and strong actors, but we try to introduce more categories to have a more differentiated picture. And I would just like to point to some you use today, like coordinating mechanisms, for example, and for example, AKIS directed policies at national and international level, and so on. So this helps us to get a better understanding and not only fall into traps of too simple comparisons. Of course, benchmarking is important. This is my third point from the discussion I followed in the breakout group. I think actually that such bilateral talks about AKISs that have some common features, or countries that have common features, like here it was Spain and Italy, decentralized AKIS governance situations, maybe kind of similar structure of the sector you may discuss, and so on. And then you find interesting strengths and learnings from both sides. Yeah, so in a similar way, Portugal and Greece could look what do they have in common, what are differences, rather than, for example, Portugal and Spain. So this was my third point. My fourth point is that I find this we put a lot of energy into that. The country reports contain these diagrams, and as you have seen, there is still a huge diversity in how these diagrams are set up, and they serve mainly for internal discussions. But we could see that some of these diagrams were made by the same consultants, like Italy, Malta, and in Italy we had even two. And this allows also for a comparative view to understand better what is behind the structure. So some harmonization in how these diagrams are set up that helps to have a faster grasp of what is at stake. And finally, yes, I think we also saw that this focus on advisory services is very helpful when we want to go deeper into the understanding of what is going on in interactive innovation. And here I would like to come back to also what Inge said in the morning. We get more and more aware that interactive innovation support services are provided by a manifold diversity of actors, and that for a successful support to such complex innovation processes, we have to be able to perceive them all or many of them, and to enhance and support cooperation among the diversity of actors, not to strengthen only one group in the to the disadvantage of another. So this is from my side. I don't believe that this was all what could be detected in this very interesting session, and I hope that you can continue with many discussions and getting more fruits from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for coming back to us to make this summarized presentation. And I will like to give word now to Maite Ambrós, which is our General Subdirectorate of Innovation and Digitalization in the Spanish Ministry of Agriculture, in order to do the closing words. So Maite, if you are there, please.
Yes, here I am. Well, I just want to express our gratitude first to be part of this consortia. It's not easy for a ministry like us, for a small unit like us, to be part of a project like this, but we are very happy. So thank you for joining, for let us join you. And thank you for facilitators, moderators, and specially speakers from the different countries. It's extremely useful for us, for Spain, for the Ministry of Agriculture, to know how the AKIS look like in your countries, even to know how you depict them, how you show them, how to improve diagnosis. So I think this is really an exercise of interactive innovation for policy design to strengthen the AKIS. We live in a moment where the AKIS have to be strengthened. I also want to thank Inge that always tries to bring this to the practical point of view, is to go beyond the theoretical vision of the AKIS and to see that we have tools, we have interventions in the new common agricultural policy to implement this. So for us, it's a great opportunity. I also want to thank all the team, Iratxe, Juan, Pedro. I have to thank also our former boss, Rocío Wojski, that really tried our unit to be part both of the AKIS and of these projects. And also thank you persons that are not with us at the moment, but they've been part of this, like Laura or Cristina, and also to Miguel Angel. So thank you to all the unit because you did a great job. And finally, I also want to thank participants. We try to disseminate this among the important stakeholders in the autonomous regions. It's a pleasure for us to listen to colleagues speaking from Navarra, taking part from Catalonia, or speaking from research centers in Madrid. We really want to be side by side working with the regions in Spain, and I agree that decentralization and subsidiarity has some weaknesses, but also a lot of strengths. So now that we have to program almost 100 million euros in our ministry, in advisory service, in operational groups, and in knowledge transfer and training, a workshop like this is extremely useful. So thank you, all of you. Thank you.
So I guess it's time to leave. I would say also that I thank you a lot and appreciate everyone in the audience for staying here with us and all the cooperation we receive from different partners. And I will see you again soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.